We have two great pop-up talks for you. And we really wanted to break up some of the panel presentations and discussions today with some very short summaries of some innovative programs that we're seeing in employee benefits. So I'm extremely pleased to introduce you to Mary Morris, a blast from my past when I used to work on 529 college savings research back when FRC was part of Citigroup after BICIS. I don't know how far back you all know about these organizations. Yeah, so Mary Morris is the Chief Executive Officer of Virginia 529, the largest tax advantage education savings program in the country, with the Direct Invest 529 Advisor College America programs and the Defined Benefit 529 program. Virginia 529 launched tax advantage disability savings program Able Now in 2016 and Able America in 2018. Virginia 529 is developing a state-facilitated private retirement program to open by mid-2023. So we have an incredible state sponsor here that's providing a holistic set of savings accounts for Americans all over, really. And I'd also like to introduce, before Mary comes up with her presentation, Devin Miller. Devin is CEO and co-founder of Secure Save, and he is leading the charge in reinventing the emergency savings account. Throughout his career, Devin has developed financial technology solutions used by tens of millions of Americans across a variety of industries, with a particular focus on consumer finance, small business, and payments. So you're going to hear about his Secure Save solution and the adoption and the questions that he's getting from employers. Two very innovative solutions. So please welcome both Mary and Devin.
Thank you, Bridget. So good to be with you all today. And I realize I can't see the slides, so hopefully it'll advance properly and we'll go through it. Mary Morris, it is so nice to be with you. I listened to the last session and just thought once again, as I often do, how grateful I am that I work for the Commonwealth of Virginia in an independent state agency. So we have a lot of flexibility, but I get a lot of what the state provides, which is excellent healthcare at a very reasonable cost that I wish everyone in the entire country had access to. And if I could wave my wand, I would do that. I have 2 adult children who do not have that, so I see it from both sides. So we try to work with all of these things and help families where we can. Insurance is not one of them, and I actually hope we never get into that. I don't see that one happening, but almost everything else. I was talking at lunch, they said, Virginia 529 does all these things. So, well, yeah, we have a little bit of an identity crisis right now, and then our name officially, our organization or agency name is still the Virginia College Savings Plan, which does not begin to do justice to what we do. We've used Virginia 529 for a long time rather than that long name, but that still really does resonate with education savings. And that's the core of what we do. That's where we started back in 1994. So we've got almost 3 decades of experience helping families and individuals save for the most important things that they have. Starting off, it's always education and retirement. Actually, retirement comes first and then education for your kids. Those are the things that keep people up at night and they worry about. And now we're going to help solve, we hope, for both of those things. We've been doing the education savings piece sort of at retail in Virginia, throughout Virginia, and really across the country for a very long time. So we hope that that experience will help us as we build some of the other things. This slide just gives you just a snapshot of who we are and what we do. We tried this last year. We had legislation to do a bunch of different things. It did not go through, unfortunately. It would have changed our agency name to Commonwealth Savers Plan. So hopefully next year that'll go through. That'll be our top line. And really what we are doing is rebranding ourselves into an entity that really works with financial wellness, overall financial health of individuals in the Commonwealth of Virginia. With financial education pieces, we do a lot of outreach. We have a lot of tools. We then say, if you are interested in education savings, here's Virginia 529. If you're interested in disability savings, here's Able Now and Able America. If you're interested in retirement savings through an employer, it's a little bit different reach or outreach, but it's Retire Path Virginia. So that's just a snapshot of that. In terms of who we are, right, Bridget, we are by far the largest 529 program in the country. We hope that that scale, that experience, the internal team that we have in Virginia, which is different than any other state, will help us build out our disability savings programs and our retirement program. I'm going to stop for 2 seconds and ask how many in the room have any familiarity, some familiarity, I hope it's everybody, with 529 plans. Just show of hands. Okay, that's pretty standard. Not standard across the country, however. When Edward Jones and Fidelity and others do surveys across the country, about 35% are familiar with the 529 plan. So we still have lots of work to do. I will say when we do it in Virginia, we flip the numbers. It's about 65% have awareness of 529 because I think we do a really good job. We have the resources to do it of getting the word out about our program, but that has not spread nationally. So we try. So now, how many of you have heard of ABLE disability savings programs? That's a pretty good number too. A lot fewer than 529, but I'm impressed. We are trying to get the word out on that. Again, I think Virginia does as good a job as anybody at doing that. We have some resources. We have the ability to do it nationally, but individuals with disabilities and their families can help them, can have programs similar to 529s. There are some federal restrictions on it, but they are available. The definition of disability is pretty broad, and what you can use those programs for is very broad. It's not just medical expenses. It is all kinds of medical related things, medical devices, technologies. It is also living expenses. It can be food, it can be shelter, it can be automobiles, and it is a way to save for the future. And I talk to people all the time. You have a disability if you have a disability. If it is managed, if you can work, that's great. That is the goal of ABLE programs, is to enhance independence and to enhance, empower individuals with disabilities to grow, to live on their own, to live independently, to have jobs, but to also keep some of the federal and state benefits that they may have access to because of the disability, even though they're working. And an ABLE account essentially shelters some of that. There are also pretty significant tax advantages at the federal and state level for an ABLE account. As with 529s, grows tax-free. After-tax contributions, grows tax-free. Never taxed as long as you use it for qualified expenses. And as I said, those expenses are very broad and ABLE. They're even broader in 529 programs than they used to be. You can use it for some student debt reduction. You can use it for K through 12 tuition expenses, as well as a very broad range of educational expenses. And we're working in Congress to expand that to a lot of workforce development and training programs where we know that there's a huge gap. And if those aren't provided through an eligible educational institution right now, you can't use your 529 for it. So that's one of our big federal pushes. And then retirement savings. I'll flip to the next question, to the next slide. How many are familiar with state-sponsored, state-facilitated retirement programs? Makes sense in this group that a fair number of you are, since you work with retirement. But again, generally when I go out and talk to folks about this in Virginia, I get maybe 1 or 2 hands. So this is something people still aren't really familiar with. Although at least half of the states now have at least taken some action towards this. There are 5 or 6 or 7 that are open, only 3 that have been open for any length of time. We're open in Virginia in pilot right now. So we're pretty excited about all of it. This has come up in Virginia. I will tell you honestly, I think we had a narrow window when it went through and some of the things that convinced us, but, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because y'all know, the reason for it is that about 45% of working Virginians, and the number seems to stay true across the country, every state that I listen to about this, it's a similar number. About 45% of working individuals in a state do not have have retirement coverage through an employer plan, which mostly means they don't have any retirement plan other than Social Security and, you know, hoping that things go well. And that hasn't changed over 40 years. I know, I think a lot of you, I don't really know the entire audience here, probably work on the other side of it and go, why are the states getting involved in this? There is some research out of Pew, and I know we've got some folks from Pew here that show that in the states that are doing this, it is actually one of the first things in 40 years that is incentivizing some employers to offer their own plan because they don't want to play with us at the state level and do the plan, right? But for those smaller employers and the ones that we're finding in a number of different areas like construction, agriculture, retail sales, hospitality and food industry, the ones where there are a lot of transient employees, fewer professional employees, lower income employees, and more a lot of female-owned businesses we're finding are gonna fit into this, smaller employers, and individuals of color and different ethnicities. Those are the ones, they're in the 45%. They don't have retirement coverage. Some of what we've heard already today, similarities to the insurance industry, right? So we're trying to bridge that gap. And those employers are grateful because they know it's good to have. They'd like to have it themselves, and they can't afford it. They don't feel like they can afford it. They're just trying to keep their heads above water. They're newer businesses, they're young, and they don't want to take on the responsibility. So we're trying to bridge that. So what's important to know, a lot of information. If you go to retirepathva.com, we have studies that we've done, ton of information. We have worked with Pew, we've worked with ESI, a lot of data on this. I'm trying to talk really fast, and it's a good thing I am a fast talker. But what we know also from the Commonwealth's perspective, and one of the things that helped convince the General Assembly to move forward with this plan, is that it takes a relatively small amount over a long period of time. It's about $160 a month, which we have very few dollars coming in now in our pilot, but the average is about 140. So it's right on track, makes the difference. Will actually allow people at retirement, and they look at a household with $75,000 income. When they retire, the replacement of having saved that amount over a long period of time, plus Social Security, will allow them to maintain a similar standard of living to what they had when they were employed, which is the goal. And without that savings account, they are not going to be able to do that. And it will cost, the estimate is about $12 billion to the Commonwealth of Virginia in the next 13 years by not having that coverage. They're just not going to, they're going to tap into other programs, other needs-based programs, federal and state, that will end up costing the Commonwealth. So this is all you need to know right now. Employers with 25 or more employees who work at least 30 hours a week don't like that requirement. We're going to work on changing that. If they don't offer another retirement option, they have to offer RetirePath Virginia. The employees don't have to participate. They can always opt out, but the employer has to upload their information and get started. And we have some pretty basic options. So I'm not going to talk too much more about it, because I do want to talk about the tie-in to employment, since that's what we're here about today. We spend a lot of time. We work a lot, as I said, at retail. We work with individuals. Obviously, the RetirePath program is working with employers, whether they want to or not, I guess. But we're hoping to make it that they will. We just finished filming. I was telling Lisa about it, a few people that I know. We are in pilot now. We have about 10 or 12 pilot participants. And my very favorite is the first one that signed up, the first one that got their people signed up for the pilot, signed up for the program. And we've done an ad. We're going to be using this all around the Commonwealth. We'll use it for lots of things, sort of a testimonial. And it's River City Tattoo. I'm from Richmond. I don't know. Richmond is like the tattoo capital of the world, I think. There are lots of tattoo parlors. They have, festivals, they have conferences. It's huge. And the filming, it's fabulous. I've seen the rough cut of it, and these are millennials. These are Gen Xers. They are in non-traditional jobs. And the employer and the employees talking about having this option, it will just about, not trying to make you cry, but it will. It does me. I sort of get choked up every time I see it, because it's driving what we do and how we do it. So we're trying to reach out to folks. We also have been doing it for a while with Virginia 529, trying to get employers to talk with us, to see 529 programs, helping their employees contribute to 529 accounts, to their ABLE accounts, working with the retirement piece, because what we know is that most people, in every survey I've ever seen that says, where do people get most of their financial information? Who do they trust the most? It's their employer. Now, employers might be appalled by that, particularly smaller ones, because they don't want to be that person necessarily. So we're trying to bridge the gap a little bit. We do a ton of outreach to employers. We've got a listing here, some of the things that we do. I'll finish up on this slide. Partners, I told my crew, this is my marketing crew, it's a little bit loose. They are partners in that we go to all of these folks. We are in there at benefits fairs. We are talking to the employers. We offer gift coupons, gift codes. So if their employees want to sign up with one of our programs, either Virginia 529, Invest 529, or our Able Now program, I think it's a $10 coupon to help them get started. You can open up an account for as little as $10, so it goes over that hump. trying to reach out to employers. We've done a match at Virginia 529. It is a taxable match, but it's still a really nice benefit for our employees for about 10 years. We'll match $529. You put it into your account, it can be your account, your kid's account, anybody's account you want, 529 account or an ABLE account, and we match it dollar for dollar up to $529. 529 catch. About 80% of our employees use it. They love it. It is a retention tool. Those are the kinds of things that we try to talk to employers across the Commonwealth about. How do you get some loyalty going? How do you help your employees? How do you provide opportunities to them to save, again, for the things that are most important? Retirement now, we're getting there. Education is always number 2. Sometimes it's number 1, depends on the family. And then if you yourself or a family member has a disability savings and maintaining your benefits while still growing some independence and having some more than $2,000 in assets, a disability savings program is really meaningful. So that's really fast what we do. I can't see what that one says. Forget. Oh, that's just some of the things we do with employers, and that's some information about us. This will be available. Our 3 different logos, all nicely put. Oh, I can see it right here on the screen. Duh. I wasn't paying attention to that. I'm just talking. Anyway, Virginia 529, Able Now, Retire Path, Virginia. And that's pretty darn close. So that's it for me. And I'll.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. As Bridget said, Devin Miller, co-founder and CEO of SecureSave. And I'm just going to give our perspective of what we're seeing in the market around workplace emergency savings. So that's all we do as a company. Generally, our customers and the people we work with are employers of all different sizes, from very big to very small. We work with a variety of different partners in record keeping, to benefits providers, to commercial banks. And we've spent 2.5 years now on this topic, just fully heads down and working from a variety of different perspectives. And so today, I'm going to walk you through what we are seeing in the market, touch a little bit on Secure 2.0 and some of the reaction that we've heard over the last 6 months since it passed. And then I'm really just going to break down what is driving employers to launch workplace emergency savings programs, how they're designing them, and then the impacts they're having. So first off, this is an exceptionally popular concept with people. This is a piece of research that we've done, but it shows up from others in the market, a variety of different ways. We've also asked this question kind of comparatively to healthcare, to retirement. No matter how you slice it or which source you look at, individual people love the idea of workplace emergency savings, specifically love the idea of the automation through work. They love the idea of incentives, the understanding that it's liquid, that it's portable. But what's amazing is how much they like it comparative to other programs. And this is something that we've done actually multiple times with different researchers. And even just this is our most recent version, it just continues to gain in popularity. With Secure 2.0, what's been interesting is the general reaction by employers. Obviously, like many of you, we were kind of waiting around in December, seeing if the legislation would even pass. And so as January hit, there was a lot of just extra market awareness around this concept. And so one thing that we found is that the interest and awareness of the topic has just magnified several multiples very quickly. A lot more interest, a lot more willingness to learn and understand. But I would say there's a lot of lack of understanding of the different variations of workplace emergency savings. And there's really, besides different ways to pull money out of your retirement plan, if you look at the idea of an account that you can save into, there's either in plan, which is the pension-linked ESAs, which were really defined in Secure 2.0, or there's out of plan. And we've generally taken a agnostic view. We always have kind of said, we'll go where the market is, what people are most interested in, we'll look at. But we like this kind of comparison because it really kind of highlights the in plans versus out of plan. What we find is very few employers are looking for one or the other. They don't really understand the distinction. They're just, what is this and how do we think about it? What we are finding though is that when employers, and it really only takes a minute or two of walking through the variations, quickly say, I don't want in plan. And I just don't want to talk about it anymore. That seems too complex, too many restrictions, too many questions. And it doesn't seem like it's a good fit for me or our workforce. And that seems to be trickling onto the retirement side. It's obviously a non-mandatory component of Secure 2.0. We think that these will ultimately end up in the market, the in-plan version, but it's definitely, if we had to predict the future, I would expect the vast majority of emergency savings programs are going to be out of plan. Slow on the click there. All right. So why are they doing this, regardless of the form? You know, it's interesting. There's a lot of reasons, but I would say some of the ones that we find that are most common are around financial health and wellness. Obviously, that's a big focus of employers to improve the financial health and well-being of their employees. And there's a growing body of research. In particular, there's a researcher at Pitt, Carrie Leanna, who's published some research around a study that she's done that is actually goes back several years now, of a trucking company that had shown a very definitive ROI of launching essentially what was an out-of-plan emergency savings program. And as employers look for ways to get a broad impact across employees around financial health and well-being, and to have it be sticky, meaning they stick with it and it's measurable and it has a good return on investment, workplace emergency savings are kind of bubbling up very high on the list, which is causing a lot of employers just to look into it and think about how they would approach that. But within kind of underneath that, reducing 401k loans, hardship withdrawals is a common theme we continue to hear. And depending on the industry, it varies quite a bit on the size of the company and the industry, but obviously recruiting and retention comes up a lot. And that goes back to the popularity of the concept. If you're trying to recruit or retain with a benefit, it has to be something that your employees are going to resonate with and use and stick with. And so that's been an area that we have found to be really key. There we go. So as employers really start to dig into the case studies of workplace emergency savings, and the results that we put up are similar to what some others are providing. In fact, the research by Carrie Leanna and the out of plan she did had almost the exact adoption rate that we've demonstrated over and over and over again. And the adoption rate we get is based off of employees that are invited, that enroll, that are actively saving. And so that 59% is essentially active savers. And what's even cooler, if you dig underneath that, it's a very sticky benefit, meaning that they retain that habit. And so when employees sign up, we see about 98 to 99% monthly retention. So annualized, about 88% of the employees stick with it. And even if they leave the employer, about a third of the time they stick with the product and keep that account. But the dollar retention is even better. We only see about 2 withdrawals per year, which is fine. We want people to withdraw. This is something they stay away from. But generally, they're not rating this account. They're not rating the incentives. And they're building, and we'll show this at the end, they're actually building their balance pretty consistently over time. And so what does the typical program look like? Now, and what makes them successful? So first off, we have found that focusing on just specifically emergency savings, not a savings program, but emergency savings, is better. And there's a couple of reasons we believe why from our work. Emergency savings is something. I know what that is. I know what I'm going to get. When I'm asked to save, I have to, like, what am I saving for? Can I save? Do I think that's for me? Where everybody knows what savings is, or emergency savings, and what that's going to do for them. And they all want more of that. And so we think that's really important. Also, just putting a link out on a site and telling employees about it is not going to deliver very good results, but actually sending an invitation and pulling people in obviously works much, much better. But there's some other little unique things. We don't do percentages. We also tell our employers that we work with, don't give incentives in percentages. All of this is head math that none of us like to do, except for maybe the actuaries in the room. And just, you got to reduce that mental and cognitive load onto the employees. And then finally, incentives work. They definitely work. But what's been interesting in our research is that the incentives don't have to be very large. And we have found a really high correlation to super high adoption at as low as about $150 per employee per year. And it's dripped to them. And it's actually better if you do that in little drips and drabs, $5 a paycheck, $10 a month, something like that, allows the employee to maintain that habit. And then ultimately what that leads to is something like this. If done right, at an individual employee level, this is the type of result that we see over and over and over again, which is everyone loves it throughout the $400 stat of how many people don't have $400. We consistently see people that use this type of product or program get to $400 in about 400 or 500 months, 4 or 5 months, not 100 months. And then They get to 1,000 in about 13 months. There's definitely some variation to this, and it depends on the workforce, how much they're asked to save, what's the incentives. But this is an average of all the programs and all the employees we see, and it's super consistent. And they definitely do take money out, but it's always very specific amounts, and they almost always keep the auto save going. So which means that even if they do take a withdrawal, they're not permanently turning off that save. And so the idea of that per paycheck automation through their workplace is super important. So that's all we've got today. And I think one kind of key takeaway I'd love for you to all walk away with is that this is a key topic for workers. They very much want this. They definitely want it to be very liquid, very easily accessible. They love the idea of incentives. They don't need to be that big, but simplicity scales, and keeping it simple, keeping it very easy is what has led to the best success for us. So thank you very much.
Devin, quick question. This is
Yep.
great. Really interesting to hear your
you.
experience. In terms of the incentives, can you talk a bit more about that? And I'm also interested in whether the incentive could be charitable, and do young people in particular respond to giving something to somebody else more so than, or even giving to their others within their organization. If you're saving for yourself, the incentive would be to help even more needy people among you.
Yeah.
So
On that last part, we've seen that with some employers, and we like that concept, and we've avoided it for no other reason than, again, as I said, simplicity scales. It's an interesting like for later concept that we've said there's something there, but let's park that. And so back to the incentives, we do 3 different types of incentives, and you can do any combination of these. Sign-up bonus of $50 is the highest correlation to high adoption. And what's interesting, we always get like, well, people are just going to take that and spend it, and they don't. A very small single-digit percentage will raid the account, so to speak. So $50 works really well. I think a drip campaign, which is a per paycheck, if the employee puts in a certain amount of like $20 and the employer puts in $2 to $5, so it's a great rate of return, but it's small money. Like you're not going to go into the account and raid $5, but it builds and maintains that habit. And employers that we see do that have really tremendous retention of the program and the habit of their employees. And then finally, milestone bonuses are really great because it's a nice round number. We've seen this really well done with retention. There's a franchise we work with that does quick lube oil change, and they do $600, which is a lot of money, but you have to stay with the employer for a year and participate in the program for 12 months to get that $600. And it's been really effective for them. And so, but again, simple round numbers, very easy, not big amounts, leads to good success.
A leading question, if I may. This is Mark EBRI, and I think, Mary, terrific presentation. Really great. You're a great spokesperson for the auto IRA state-based movement. And Devin, also terrific presentation. For you, Devin, a leading question. You mentioned that the 401k based emergency savings is as prescribed by Congress in its recent pension linked option in Secure 2.0, viewed by many employers as a bit prescriptive and has a variety of conditions, as we know. A whole bunch of us worked very hard, to get something in the 2.0 on emergency savings, including that pension linked provision. And I'm wondering whether your take on the likelihood that employers will take a greater interest in it, and record keepers over time would tend to be influenced by the nature of the Treasury and IRS guidance that comes out. In other words, if they're able to keep it reasonably simple, to your point, and workable for employers and record keepers, do you think that would provide, some basis for larger take up when the time comes?
The quick answer would be yes. I think it just depends on what that is, but I think any guidance and clarification could help. But to go back, I mean, we actually helped quite a bit too in providing data to policymakers and other providers to try and help just move the topic forward, and took a fairly agnostic view of anything that passes that focuses on emergency savings as a component of retirement security is a net positive for workers. And ultimately, let the market decide. And there was a general, let's put lots of solutions and let things go. I mean, as all of you know, 401ks were never meant to be the vehicle that they've turned into today. And so, let's see how things play out. I think overall, though, what we tell back to policymakers is great job with the legislation. It definitely has had a positive impact. It just might not be in how you designed it to have a positive impact, but positive nonetheless. And there is still more work to be done. And I don't think anyone ended the legislation push thinking like we've nailed it. But I think we made a huge stride forward on this topic. And I think that we will chart back to this passage and say that was when this became a foregone conclusion that there will be tens of millions of these accounts. But I think that there's still a path of how will that turn out and what will they look like very, very early.
One more question and then we'll go to the next panel. Yeah.
The way things work through Congress is it ever perfect? I mean, you get what you get, right?
Hey,
Work on it.
thank you, Mary, and thanks for both presentations. So I was reading on the website about the retirement plan. Employers are not allowed to contribute
Correct.
and they don't have any fiduciary duty. So is that because of some ERISA issue? Or
Because
just,
it's not an ERISA plan, it is an auto IRA, right? So
I mean, but
specifically,
that's a disadvantage compared to if the employer were to,
sure,
and so if
Absolutely.
employers agrees to do this payroll deduction and they do have access, the participants do have access to investments and
Yes.
counseling and all that, but there's still a disadvantage in that if this crowds out an employer that would want to contribute eventually, how do you manage that? Are you planning to contribute, allow the employers to contribute at some point?
what we hope is that this will be a pipeline for employers, that we reach employers, younger employers, newer employers, ones in industries that traditionally just don't, they have a workforce that turns over, they don't feel like they can do it. But that's what I said, there's research already coming out of Oregon, California, Illinois, plans that have been open a little bit longer. The uptake for employers has picked up pace in those states in setting up their own, either an IRA program or hopefully a 401k program. So that's the goal. We are not trying to supplant that or encourage employers not to provide their own. We think it'll be an incentive. I figure there are going to be enough other new employers, other folks coming into the landscape to keep our program going. And if they move out after a couple of years, monies are fully portable. We hope that the employees will go with them. And similar to some of what we were talking about with some of the EBRI, which I hadn't heard of before, I had to look that up on the insurance side. You can hold on to it. So employees can continue to contribute into their account. If they leave one employer, they go to another one. It will be fully portable if it's another employer that is within Retire Path Virginia, but the employee can, or an individual can keep going. One of the things we're really going to work on in Virginia is also hitting folks that don't have to come in through their employer. So to provide an option for particularly younger workers, gig workers, part-time workers, folks like my daughter has been for a bunch of years. She's finally fully employed by one employer, but I've seen how it works to have 6 or 7 gigs going, and they can also participate in Retire Path Virginia on their own. But again, hope it's a pipeline. Hope it just gets people started sooner, and hope that as their career grows and their employer grows, they will move into something where they can put more money in, the employers can put the money in, and it's a pipeline.
Thank you, Devin and Mary, and let's give a round of applause